Od Sheva, Israel National TV, and Or Olam, the Center for Biblical Zionism, present Ari Abramowitz and Jeremy Gimpel. Live from the heart of Israel, welcome to Tuesday Night Live in Jerusalem.
Just a few days ago, we celebrated Purim, and I was invited to this Purim Seudah in Kever Shmuel, in Samuel's grave. And as soon as I was invited, I was so excited because Shmuel was the one who finally took it to Agag, the king of the Amalekites. And if Purim is really about destroying Amalek from the world, what a place to celebrate Purim, in Samuel's grave. And it was Purim, and I was a little bit more than tipsy, but it was time to daven mincha, and I walked into Kever Shmuel. I had never been there before. And I walked into this building, and kind of just out of naivety, I just kind of walked in, I saw the main room, and all of a sudden this guy with a big black kippah comes up to me, and he says, "Ata sham, ze misgad, you there, this is a mosque." And I was like, well, he had a black kippah, I was a little bit tipsy, I didn't know what was happening. And then I walked away, and I said, "Why are you interested in being here? This is our prophet Samuel." And he said, "Ze hamakom shel Nabi Samuel. This is the place of Samuel the prophet." And I walked away so confused, kind of wondering what was happening. Why is this Arab Muslim praying in a mosque so interested in Samuel the prophet? And I went around and I kind of went downstairs, and of course the Jews have a little cave that's kind of their synagogue. And then I went home, and then I called up Ari later on that day. I was already sobered up by then. And I call up Ari, and before I even say hi, Ari's like, "Jeremy, I'm having this amazing conversation. Quick, talk to this guy. His name is Mahmoud." And I'm like, okay. Ari is the only person I know in the world that is able to pull such shtick when I just call him on the phone. And I get the phone, and I'm like, "Hello?" And he's like, "Shalom, ani Mahmoud." And I'm like, "Hi, Mahmoud." And I'm like, "Oh, this is a really opportunity." I was like, "Why are you interested in praying in Samuel's cave? I really wanted to know that from before." And he's like, "Well, I believe in Navi Samuel and Navi Musa. I believe in Samuel the prophet and Moses the prophet." I was like, "Really?" He's like, "I believe in all of the prophets of the Torah." I said, "You believe in the Torah?" And he said, "Absolutely, in every word." And I said, "Well, do you believe that God gave the land of Israel to the Jewish people?" And he said, "I believe in every word in the Torah, but the Israelis are not the people that are spoken about in the Torah." And I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, in the Torah there are books of laws. And the Israelis, they don't follow the laws in the Torah. They can't possibly be the people of that book." And I said, "Wow, that's fascinating." And it hit me just like a ton of bricks, much harder than any of the vodka that I had drinking earlier. And I said, my goodness, what an amazing path Hashem has sent out for us. Because God promises us over and over again in the Tanakh that if we follow the commandments and we walk the path of righteousness, He would bring peace to the land and bring blessings to the land. And in the book of Judges, in the book of Kings, in the book of Joshua, it all looks so supernatural. There's a good king, and then there's 40 years of goodness, and then there's the people stray from the path, and the Philistines come and attack us. And it all just seems so random and so supernatural. But if you actually pay attention, God has actually orchestrated that it doesn't take clouds of glory or any miracles to bring peace to the Middle East. That if we for one moment had faith, and all of Israel did tshuva, all of Israel repented, all of Israel started keeping Shabbat. All of Israel started wearing tzitzit with a little blue thread. And all of Israel actually walked the way God wanted us to walk. God has orchestrated a situation that the entire world would recognize us as the Jewish people in the land of Israel. We've put our faith in so many things. We've put our faith in nations. We've put our faith in ideologies. We've put our faith in personalities, Jewish personalities, non-Jewish personalities. We've put our faith in everything other than God. And the Jewish voice that finally needs to go out to the Jews in Israel and the Jews around the world is that it's time for the Jewish people to start putting our faith in God.
Now, I actually remember that discussion. I was on the way out, and I saw this group of Muslim guys, and I was just curious. I was not more than tipsy. Tipsy is a good description. And I went up and I said, "Excuse me, can I ask you a question? What do you guys think about Purim?" And they said, "Purim? And I said, yes, the holiday when God saves the Jewish people from our enemies. And they gave me a little bit of a strange look, and we entered into a really respectful and meaningful dialogue. Won't go into the details, but it ended with a hug and with Jeremy discussing with him. But that's not the only encounter that I've had. We have so many incredible encounters in what we're doing. You see, Jeremy and I, we're not rabbis by any means. We're not scholars, so we really try to make it a habit to meet with as many great rabbinical leaders as we possibly can, and Jerusalem is definitely the place to be. So we're constantly going and trying to meet and ask advice and guidance in what we're doing and what we're trying to do in the world. And this week we had the honor of meeting Rabbi Noach Weinberg, the founder of Aish Torah. Truly, when I say an honor, I was shaking going into the meeting. He's such a great, incredible, awe-inspiring rabbi. He's dedicated 50 years of his life to bring back tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, countless Jews to the beauty and the wisdom and the depth of Torah. He founded Aish Torah, which is a landmark in the old city of Jerusalem. Thousands of students come through all the time, and their teachings have affected millions around the world. And we sat with Rabbi Weinberg, and we were asking him questions, and he was giving us answers, and then he turned to us, and he said, let me ask you a few questions. What kind of country would be bombed every single day and would not declare war on its enemies and protect its citizens? And he said, I got another question. What kind of country, name a country that if it was getting bombed every day and it declared war to protect its citizens, would then have the entire world turn against them? He said, don't answer. Name it. Another country, he says, please name a country that provides weapons, arms, and money to its enemies that are bombing it every single day, and funds their leader who publicly incites the murder of your people. What are we going to say to that? We had no answer, but we continued discussing. But really the question I had walking away is, Rabbi Weinberg, he's not really a political leader. He's a spiritual leader. So what is he doing talking about all of this? Why is it relevant? And the reason is because Rabbi Weinberg has spent his entire life dedicated to the sanctification of Hashem's name, to a Kiddush Hashem. And he understands that as the Jewish people, we are God's witnesses. We're his representatives. And when we are degraded and we are tormented and we are murdered, it is a desecration of God's name. He is as if tormented and murdered with us. When we're sanctified and exalted, God is sanctified and exalted through us as well. When we act with faith and with courage, it sanctifies God's name, and when we act with fear, it desecrates his name. He is a rabbi and a spiritual leader that is truly connected with the entire Jewish people. When we were waiting to meet with him, one of his students was talking to us outside, and he was saying, every week, Rabbi Weinberg sends down a delegation from the yeshiva to Sderot to meet with the families, to support them down there. As a matter of fact, Rabbi Weinberg was just speaking about Sderot, and he broke down in tears. Now you have to understand, Rabbi Weinberg, he's ill right now. We all pray that he should have a speedy and complete recovery. But despite his illness and his weakness, he is dedicating his entire life, and that is a real Jewish voice, not one full of quivering fear, but one full of the knowledge that if we, as the Jewish people, return to the mitzvot and to fear of God, we will not emerge disappointed.
Tonight's show is the hope for a new Jewish voice in a new generation in Israel. And that Jewish voice has to be based, rooted in a Kiddush Hashem, in a sanctification of God's name. What hurt Rav Noach Weinberg so much, he said, was it's such a Chilul Hashem. It's such a desecration of God's name that's what's happening to the Jewish people in Israel. And a Chilul Hashem is spoken about so beautifully in Yechezkel, in Ezekiel chapter 36:23. And it says, I will sanctify my great name that is desecrated among the nations, that you have desecrated among them. Then the nations will know that I am Hashem when I become sanctified through you in their eyes. And I will take you from among the nations and gather you from all the lands, and I will bring you home to your own land. A Chilul Hashem isn't just a desecration of God's name. Chilul, desecration, comes from the Hebrew word halal, which means empty. What is a desecration of God's name? It's not just that we're desecrating it, that we're dirtying it. It's that we're emptying God from the world. In Yechezkel, he's saying that when the Jews are in the exile, it's a desecration of God's name because it's as if God isn't powerful enough to bring us back. He promised us over 70 times in the Bible that he would bring us back to the land of Israel. And as long as we're living in Japan, in Hong Kong, and in America, and Cedarhurst, then it's as if God isn't that powerful. It's as if God has been emptied from the world. It's a Chilul Hashem in our lives here in Israel are the greatest sanctification of God's name. Because it proves against all odds that God is true, that the Torah is true, that the prophets are true, that he's alive, he's guiding us, that we're all a part of this redemptive process, and we're living out our biblical and Jewish destiny in the land of Israel. See, when we give credit, when we give credit to the United Nations, when we give credit to the United States for our existence here in the land of Israel, we're taking the greatest sanctification of God's name in the last 2,000 years, and we're emptying it and saying, no, this isn't about God. This is about the UN. And the Jewish voice of a new generation has to be rooted in God. Every blessing that we have, every goodness that we have, it has to be rooted in the fact that we give all the credit to God. We need to bring a new Jewish spirit to the entire world, and that's in fact why we have this new guest with us today. They are in the trenches in the middle of America, bringing a new Jewish spirit to all the Jews around the world. Their names, Pei Dalet, and they're holy, holy Jews. I met Mordechai at Vatikin at the Kotel this last Sunday, and I knew that this was going to be a spectacular concert. So please, everyone, give it up to Pei Dalet.
Thank you, guys.
Take my hand, walk with me, show me where I'm supposed to be. Take me now, lift me up, show me your city of gold. Take me now, bring me close. Bring me close to you. Take me back. Bring me home. Bring me home to Jerusalem. I'm Yisrael Chai. Oh, Davinu Chai. I'm Yisrael Chai. Oh, Davinu Chai. Hashem said I'll be Hashem li olam va'ed. Hashem said I'll be Hashem li olam va'ed. Take my hand, walk with me, show me where I'm supposed to be. Take me now, lift me up, show me your city of old. Take me now, bring me home, bring me close to you. Take me back, bring me home to Jerusalem. I'm Yisrael Chai, oh Davinu Chai. 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 Hashem said I'll be Hashem li olam va'ed. Hashem said I'll be Hashem li olam va'ed. Slow-mo. La 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 la. La 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 la. Oh oh oh. La 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 la. No 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 no. La 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 no no. Am Yisrael Chai. Oh Davinu Chai. 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 Yeah.
So this past week, I go down to Sderot. I go accompany a tremendous group of holy tzaddikim, holy righteous people from Jerusalem. We're handing out mishloach manot to the Jews in Sderot. Menachem Persoff of the OU Center, Moshe Pollack, one of the most righteous Jews probably in the whole city. We're going down to Sderot, handing out mishloach manot, speaking to the people there, and there are some really interesting patterns. I would go up to many of them and say, so do you feel that you're being protected here? Almost all of them said, no, we feel that the government is not protecting us at all. And I said, what about the Jewish people? Do you feel like they're standing with you? And almost every single one said, absolutely. We feel such love and support from Jews all around the world. Now, it was the day before Purim, and costumes were on, people were running around, singing, having a wonderful time, and despite the imposing threat of missiles landing at any moment, spirits were up, and we want you to meet the street of Sderot.
And now meet the street with Ari and Jeremy.
אני אוהב ירושלים.
Shalom, we're here in Sderot, and we have a member of the Islamic Jihad that just fired off 3 Qassam rockets into Sderot. What's your name?
My name is Qassam Abu Allah Al-Haram Al-Jazira Fakhima.
Good job at flowing with it. Okay, what's really your name?
Alex.
So foreign journalists come down here, and you take them around, and you show them what's really happening.
Yeah, us. Not me personally, but people from our organization, yeah, they do. They simply show them the ruined houses and the establishments and everything.
We came to study, to live. That's not a normal situation where a civilian population is being constantly under threat of terror.
Chag Purim, Chag Purim, Chag Gadol HaYehudi.
Polishman from Poland.
A Polish man?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hasidim.
Do you think any Polish men are dressed up like an Ethiopian guy?
I hope so.
I hope so too. We're here with, what is your name?
Guy.
Your name is Guy.
Yes.
And you live here in Sderot.
Yes.
That is a great costume. What are you dressed up as?
Who's dressed?
It's not a Purim costume?
No, it's fine.
I'm just kidding.
Purim Sameach.
Wow. Me'akila, me-Texas. So tell me, what is Purim like here in Sderot?
I don't know, להגיד את זה как שתסקע, не выхожу из дома вообще.
Oh no, let's try to keep it clean, you know?
Who's understand?
רק בגלל החג הוא יצא מהבית.
Oh, just because of the holiday you left the house?
Yes.
Okay.
So I don't know how is it in the road.
We have here the director of programming at the OU Center, Menachem Persoff, and some holy Jews in Sderot. We're here in the bomb shelter having a crazy party. Menachem, what is this all about?
This is all about Am Yisrael. This is about the message of Purim, that Am Yisrael Chai, despite all the difficulties and despite all the hardships, if we have Emunah and we're together, then Am Yisrael Chai, and here we are.
אדר, מי שנכנס אדר, מה אומר?
I just want to share my simcha of the holiday with everyone else and my fellow Jewish people.
Hi, my name is Banana Man / Shlomi Ringel.
What is a banana like you doing here in Sderot?
Making the people here happy, giving smiles to their faces.
אדיר? ואתה יודע קסם? לא, וואו! Do you love Sderot?
Love, very love.
You very love Sderot?
Yes. People very good.
People very good. Even
Yes.
with Qassam rockets falling, you still love Sderot.
Yes. כמה שישלחו קסאמים וכמה שיעשו הכל, לא נעזוב את שדרות.
He says, no matter how many Qassams you shoot in, we're never gonna leave Sderot.
Yes.
שלום שלום אחי, שנייה.
אני ממהר.
לאן אתה ממהר? Where are you from? כן.
אני Italy. Yes, but now I'm here.
You moved from Italy to
No,
Sderot?
my family in Italy. I'm not right here. I come into Israel to hear.
You come to Israel to hear the news?
No.
But where are you going? We need to understand, why would you come from Italy to Sderot?
Because I love this city.
You love Sderot?
כן.
Even with the Qassams falling?
Yes.
Wow! Are you trying to go somewhere?
הנה, אחיין.
מי יותר חזק? ספיידרמן או סופרמן?
אני יובל.
מה?
יובל.
אוי, אתה יובל? ומה אתה אומר, ספיידרמן או סופרמן?
יובל.
יובל יותר חזק. ומה אתה אומר, מי יותר חזק, ספיידרמן או דוד המלך? יובל! איפה הגודל שלי? דוד! Yeah, Chania, you're not scaring anybody, okay? I just want to let you know I'm here in Sderot. The Jews aren't scared of you, okay? We'll talk later. שלום לכם, פורים שמח. רצינו להביא מתנות. אתם רוצים מתנות? ייי! אתה יכול לבחור.
זה? אוקיי, תקרא.
וואו! תודה רבה לכם! So we're here, as you see over here, there's some ping pong players and some kids playing, and then all of a sudden, what do we have here? We have a bomb shelter. The fate of the Jews in Sderot is the fate of the entire Jewish people. And we're all in one boat and one family together. We need to stand up and cry out, we're one, and we're not going to leave them alone. We're not going to turn our backs to them.
I want to thank you, all of you, and you do a good mitzvah. A big mitzvah.
Thank you. תודה רבה. I am a proud Jew. I love Tuesday night live.
Our next guest isn't just a friend to me and Ari. He's not just a mentor to me and Ari. He's almost like family. Every up and every down, he's been there. We started off with Arut Sheva years ago on our radio show. And he's been with us from the very beginning. When we speak about a Jewish voice of a new generation from Israel, you can't help but look at Israel National News, Israel National Radio, and Israel National TV. Baruch Gordon is the director of all of them. He is the new voice of Israel. One day that voice will illuminate the entire world, and now we are so honored to have our mentor, our friend, our Rebbe, Baruch Gordon on the show.
Rebbe.
Laura, thank you for coming on.
It's a pleasure to be here.
I feel like this is such an honor. I can't even tell you. I feel like I could die now. That's it.
Don't do that.
It's not a
It's
plan.
Tuesday Night Live, not dead.
So, give us a background. What is Arutz Sheva's mission?
You know, Arutz Sheva's mission is basically to raise Jewish morale in Israel. It's to promote Aliyah overseas. It's to bring a Jewish voice, to the non-Jews of the world. And perhaps most important in the journalistic standpoint, it's to defend and champion the cause of Israel, to fight the anti-Israel bias that's so prevalent not only in the world media, but also right here at home in the state of Israel, in our own media. I'll tell you more specifically, there's an interesting oral tradition from the Netziv of Volozhin. And he said, if you ever want to know in every generation of Jewish history what the single most important event or development in that generation is advancing the Jewish people towards their redemption more than any other event or development, he says there's a very easy way to know. And the way to know is to look and see what the non-Jewish world, the Goyim around the world, are opposed, they're against they're most opposed to. And I think it's clear that in our generation, it's Judea and Samaria and Gaza. And we're there to champion that cause. We're from Judea and Samaria and Gaza. The station is based in Beit El, just a 20-minute drive north of Jerusalem. And you know, I was not long ago back in my hometown. I say home is Israel, but my original hometown of Tennessee, of Memphis. And I remember driving across Tennessee just not long ago, and I was driving, and I saw, suddenly we were out in the country driving towards Mississippi, and I saw like a caravan off to the side of the road. I said, look at that. There's a caravan, but I didn't see photographers, and I didn't read about it in the paper that there was a caravan out next to some lake in Mississippi, Tennessee. And I realized that it's just absurd that every swing set that gets put up on the hilltop in Judea and Samaria, it turns into a satellite photo on George Bush's desk, and they're like strategizing, what are we gonna do about this swing set? And there's Jewish children swinging it, we've got to stop this. So we're there to keep it going.
So, Arutz Sheva has such a history, not only around the world, but specifically in Israel. Can you tell everyone in this room and everyone around the world, what were the developments, what's the history of Arutz Sheva, Channel 7?
Today I was riding in a car with a friend, and it turned out this friend had 2 children who took a hike 20 years ago from Chol HaMoed Pesach. This Chol HaMoed Pesach, the intermediate days of the Passover holiday. 20 years ago in 1988, there was a group from Elon Moreh that took a walk, and they, in the Maariv newspaper, got their hiking tour. It was recommended in the section, and it was not far from Elon Moreh in the Shomron, near the village of Beta. And they took the 16-year-olds there, and this guy in the car, he had 2 children there, and Pesach Savitz. And he was, and the children went out for a walk, and suddenly, as part of the Intifada, which started in December of 1987, the Arab uprising, 400 Arabs came out of the town, surrounded, the kids were down in the canyon, in the Wadi. They surrounded them from above and started pelting them with rocks. They had 2 Uzis, one of them jammed, one of the Uzi rifles jammed. 1 Uzi against 400 rocks being pelted at you was not enough to defend the kids there. And they brought the kids into the town, they forced them into the village, and they shot Tirza Porat, they killed her. Romam Al-Dubi, who was one of the driving forces behind the Jewish settlement in Shechem at the time. His head was crushed in with a rock, and to this day, he still has brain damage. And the most amazing thing was that the TV that night, I remember just feeling so terrible. This was close to home. These are people that I knew. I have a brother-in-law in Shechem. I know these people. And watching TV that night, they said, these settlers, they tried to provoke the Arabs there, and Dafka went into the place, this village. And not only that, but Dan Shomron, who recently passed away, the IDF chief of staff, he came out and he gave a report saying this was totally uncalled for. The Jews had no business being there. And I'm watching this saying, what's going on? One of the national newspapers recommended a hike. They did it. And they got smashed by the Arabs. They got smashed by the Arabs. 1 girl is killed. Another guy is a skull Christian. And then finally the reporter on the TV turns to Dan Shomron and he says, well, did you interview any of the Jews to get their version of the story? He said, no. We just interviewed the Arabs. So this was the state of the Israeli media back then. And also the Israeli army to some extent, all the upper echelons of Israeli society, unfortunately. There was such a anti-assert Jewish rights position. And we realized this has to change. I was on a bus that got 4 Molotov cocktails thrown at our bus, driving right past the El Amari, what's called the refugee camp. 4 Molotov cocktails come smashing into our bus. They stopped the bus. We get out. We tried to chase these guys out, running. They got away. There were some guys who were really upset. I mean, imagine you got 4 Molotov cocktails thrown at your bus. There's people that didn't survive such things. Thank God they exploded outside of the bus. So some of the guys started throwing rocks and breaking some windows. That went on for maybe 15 minutes. So we got back on the bus, and then we are transferred to the Ramallah police station, and we're like put up there on the wall, and the Arabs come in and they point out a few people. We get back on the bus, and we hear on the news, the 6 p.m. news, I'll never forget it. They said, a rampage of Jewish settlers goes into Ramallah, breaking glass. I'm saying, my God, you feel helpless. We're the victims. 4 Molotov cocktails, and some people out of anger broke a few windows, and now we're being presented as the aggressors. So enough was enough. And Ketzela and Rabbi Zalman Melamed, the yeshiva in Beit El, they decided we're going to go buy a ship, just like there was a peace boat, and they bought a ship. You know, they just went and bought a ship. You can look in the yellow pages under ship. They went out to Greece, they bought a ship. They went out to LA, Los Angeles, woo, all the LA people. And they bought some broadcasting equipment, and we set up ship. And we set up a national radio station. I mean, when you think about it, 80% of the population of the state of Israel, you can reach from the sea. It's very close to the coastal plain.
What does Erut Sheva symbolizes? What does it symbolize for the national bloc of the state of Israel?
I think today is a great victory for democracy in Israel. And it's the first victory against the attempt to silence the voice of at least half the people, in my judgment more, who want to hear a different position from the left-leaning, the left-dominated voice that is constantly heard on Israel's public media. Secondly, I think it's a victory for the champions of Eretz Israel, whose values, whose beliefs, whose convictions are voiced often on this broadcasting station. It's important that this voice be heard both for democracy and for the future of Jewish life in Israel.
And I remember the first day when it started broadcasting, so I went up to Rabbi Zalman, I brought a bottle of liquor. I said, Rabbi Zalman, we got to have a drink. This is a very, we got to have a l'chaim. He said, you're right. This is a shtiyah harifa. It's like a powerful drink for the powerful moment. And it was an amazing thing that the people at Erut Sheva did in the first stages. I came on a few years later, is they said, we're going to just start broadcasting music. Now, what they did is they said only blue and white music, only Jewish music, Israeli music, Sephardic music. We're going to broadcast that all day. And what happened is that within weeks, we were getting letters from kibbutz factories saying, this is great. We listened to you all morning and all afternoon. We were getting letters from cab drivers in Tel Aviv saying, you guys are the best. He says, and it turns out that the Israeli Broadcasting Authority, this extremist left cliques, government surrogate, that thought that they understood what the Israeli society wanted to hear, they had scheduled foreign rock music the entire week, all the hours of music, and they just had a few single hours a week of Israeli folk music, a few single hours a week, not even that, of Sephardic music. And we said, we're going to take this Sephardic music and raise it on high. I'm talking about that offbeat, you know, dun-dun-dun, dun-dun, dun. So you can't hear that and stay seated, can you? It's stuff that just makes you want to rock, you know, that offbeat. There you go. You know, I married a girl from Egyptian descent, Jewish, and not from King Tut. And ever since I've been eating her mother's schug, I've just had this attraction for Sephardic music. So I get into it. I can't stay seated when I hear it. But what happened is this whole industry opened up in Israel of Sephardic music. And people were saying, we haven't been creating this music because no one would play it. There was no venue to play the music. And now that there was, an entire industry was sparked, musicians, production places, and it came to life. So just like the Israeli Broadcasting Authority had misgauged completely what the Israeli society and the Israeli public wanted to hear in terms of their listening taste, and they were just shoving down our throats foreign rock music. So they realized we made a mistake. And about, I don't remember exactly how many years later, I think it was 6, 7 years later, Reshet Gimel, which everyone today knows that Reshet Gimel, meaning the third national radio station, it's all Hebrew music today, but back then it wasn't. Does anybody remember what it was? Reshet Gimel, the third national radio station, was 100% your foreign rock station. And they made an announcement, a dramatic announcement, and they said, we're going to change it to an exclusively Hebrew music station. And that was in the wake, and in all the papers was written up. They realized from the success of Arutz Sheva that they have to follow in suit and do that. So we were very proud that we brought about that change.
So what now is the hope of a new Jewish voice in Israel?
I'll tell you what now is the hope of a new Jewish voice in Israel. I took a hitchhiker once. I was doing Miluim, reserve duty, in Matayim Shvasre, Unit 217, which was the Duvduvan unit, the cherry unit. What is the Duvduvan unit? Wait, I was just guarding the base, right? I wasn't, that's all I was. I had a detached retina when I was a little kid, so the Army just said, get out of here. I said, can I just guard bases? Okay, come on. So I guard bases in the Army, and I was guarding the space, so I took a hitchhiker from the unit, and these guys was the first unit after the Intifada, which started in December 1987, that were trained to infiltrate into the Arab villages to go and hunt down the wanted fugitives and either kill them or arrest them. And it was a new concept in the Israeli army, a special unit trained for that task. And I take this guy, and they had that week, I think, killed a civilian or something. Imagine you're in the middle of a town shootout. The terrorists put themselves deliberately among civilians, and bullets are flying. So they killed a civilian. Okay, the United States calls it collateral damage. So we had a case of collateral damage. The Israeli media went nuts, saying, this is an immoral unit. We've got to dismantle the unit. These are murderers. This is what the Israeli media was saying. And this guy was in the back seat. I put on Arutz Sheva, and Aaron Papo, who's a lawyer who had a segment, of audio segment on Arutz Sheva. He starts talking about that event. And just by chance, one of the guys who was there was in the back of the car. And Aaron Papo says, what is the media talking about? He says, these guys were under fire. These guys are going in, risking their lives for the state of Israel so that we can live a peaceful life and not be blown up and killed. He says, these guys, when you're under fire, if they deliberately place themselves amongst civilians, then those civilian deaths are on their heads. It's not our immorality. It's not our faults. It's their faults. They're the ones that have to pay and be accounted for. And furthermore, he said, if we take those lives, if we take those civilian lives into consideration, then in effect, we're perpetuating the situation by which the terrorists will continue to do that. And that's a zilzul. That's a terrible degradation of the value of life. This guy in the backseat came to life. He says, what is this? Is this in Hebrew? Am I hearing things? He says, what station is this? I said, it's Arutz Sheva. He says, I just want you to know, I've been walking around feeling so terrible. I'm ashamed to tell my friends that I'm in this unit. And you've just raised my spirits. You've raised my morale. There's a radio station out there that's telling me that what I'm doing is correct. And it was such a wonderful thing. Think what we could do if the Israeli media were to defend and assert Jewish rights. What we can do to the entire nation.
So Baruch, if you had one message to give here tonight, one message to the people in the crowd and one message to the people of the world, what would the message of the director of Arutz Sheva, Israel National News, Israel National Radio, Israel National TV, what is your message?
I think that the most important message that we can give to Jews overseas is a message of come on home, of Aliyah. Is there anybody who made Aliyah? And perhaps the single most reason that I think people don't come to Israel, and at least when I hear people that I talk to, people that I write to, they say, Parnasa, livelihood, it's so difficult to find a livelihood. Well, I have thoughts on that. I think that it's time for us to redefine success. If you have two Jewish ladies talking about their children, let's say Ari's mom and Jeremy's mom. And they say, my son is very successful. What does that mean? What is she communicating that my son is very successful? It's not Ari and Jeremy. It's, I don't know how much. They're saying he's raking it in, he's bringing in money.
That's definitely not Ari and Jeremy.
Right, that's what I mean. So he's making such and such $1,000 per month, per week, per second. And so that's the definition of success in the Western world and certainly amongst Jewish mothers when they talk with each other. But what if the same person is having marital problems? And there's like very serious friction in his house. He's got a lot of money. I've seen a lot of couples like this. And their children are bouncing off the wall and they're not behaving. And they've got all sorts of other frictions and tensions. Is that successful? Are they helping other people in life? Are they giving of themselves to others? Is that called successful, just to rake it in? That's not successful. We first have to redefine in our own minds that success and happiness is the more one less pursues his own personal pursuits of pleasure and physical well-being, and the more he pursues it for someone else, which I think was what a lot of people in this room are doing in Israel, the more happiness he has. And he can get by with much less money as long as he's happy. You know, I think a lot of the frictions in the house, once they're alleviated, we promote other things. We promote on the Root Sheva sometimes marital relations and how to get along with your wife, and there's websites that we refer to. So one can, if he redefines that and livelihood, I'll tell you, then one can come to Israel. He can make half of what he's making there, even a tenth of what he's making there. If he can get by here and finish the month, then he could be happy here. And his children could be happy. There'll be these young little Jewish lions walking around, rawr, like mine. Everyone's kids, they're like, there's something in the air here in Israel. Your kids turn into these lions. You know, this stuff, this shoulder stuff. But one final story, and that is that there was a Jew in Morocco, and in the city of Midelt, and he went to the son of the Baba Saleh, Baba Meir Abu Chatzera, and he says, Meir, I want to make Aliyah. Rebbe Meir, I want to make Aliyah. I don't think he said Rebbe. Baba Meir, I want to make Aliyah to Israel, but what can I do there? I'm committed to go, but I have a farm here. There's no farm over there. I've never learned to read or write. How am I going to get along there? It's a modern Western country. The Baba Meir looked at him and he said, the fact that you're an ignoramus, I'm not saying this to you, Jeremy. The fact that you're an ignoramus will be the key to your livelihood in Israel. He says, what? He says, yes. He says, the fact that you don't know how to read and write, that will make you succeed in your livelihood in Israel. So the guy said, that's it, I'm going. He got on the boat and he went, and on the boat he told people, they asked him, what are you going to do? He says, well, I don't know how to read or write. He said, I don't know what I'm going to do. He says, well, why are you going there? How are you going to get by? He says, my rabbi told me that even though I'm an ignoramus, that's going to be the key to my wealth in Israel. These people are looking at him like, you're a weirdo. Are you crazy? He went, he had this faith. The story ends like this, an amazing story. And it just shows how in Israel things work out differently. You can be a lawyer in the US, and you come here and you'll be a guide in a museum. There's so many stories like that. This guy comes, his son gets a job in Rafael, which is the authority for the development of Israeli weapons, the weapons authority. And he becomes so successful that he's the assistant to one of the chief scientists there. And this chief scientist happens to tell him one day, he says, you know, we need a guy to shred all the secret documents. There's so many projects going on here. One of these papers gets out, that could risk Israel's security. So what do we do? And they didn't apparently have machines yet in Israel. They needed guys to shred them or to feed them into the shredding machine and to burn them. So this guy says, he says, you need someone who doesn't know how to read or write. He says, where am I going to find someone like that? He says, my father. So the Shabak follows the father around to make sure that he has no contacts that are not kosher. And then they go and talk to him, and they give him a paper, and he holds it upside down or sideways, and they talk to him, and they say, this guy's a simpleton. He's a beautiful Jew. And he really doesn't know how to read or write. You're hired! So they hire him. After 30 years of a solid livelihood, they held a party for him. They said, you know, it's already time to say goodbye. So he's fired, or what's the word, dismissed, goes to pension, and he goes to the son of the son of Baba Meir, Rav David Abu Chatzera, who today is up in the north, and near Rosh Hanikra, I forget the name. And he goes to him, he says, Naharia, thank you. He says, your father said that I would have parnasa, livelihood in Israel, to the end of my life. And I just got laid off. So he looks at me and says, we have to pray about this. A few days later, the Rafael, the authority for the weapons development of the state of Israel, calls this guy back. He says, look, we haven't found anyone with your credentials. You're hired, come back. And this book was written in the year 2004, and he was still working there. So things don't always work out in Israel. You can plan to be all sorts of degrees, but come to Israel, you may find yourself doing something else that you never dreamt of, even shredding papers. Come home.
Thank you. A couple of months ago, I was walking down Ben Yehuda with Ari, and we saw this homeless man on the street, and he didn't have a shirt. And I was a little bit nervous. I didn't know what he was. He was kind of passed out, and hundreds of people are walking by him. I walked by him. I kind of gave him a shekel, and I kept on walking, and then I'm looking back. I'm like, where's Ari? And I see Ari's unbuttoning his shirt. And then Ari gives this homeless man his shirt. Ari had to walk off stage because he didn't want me to tell this story. But this is actually what happened. And I was like, because he had an undershirt and tzitzit on. And everyone was walking by, and no one noticed it. And Ari just had the eyes to see the world in a little bit of a different way than everyone else. And he took off his shirt, and the very next day we went back to Ben Yehuda, and that homeless man was wearing Ari's shirt. He really needed that shirt. But what Ari's teaching everyone is that all we need is to see the world in a little bit of a different way, to have Mashiach eyes for just a moment. A couple of weeks ago, Israel was rocked, harder than we've been rocked in a very long time. 8 of our most beautiful neshamas were mowed down as they were learning Torah in Israel. And it shook all of Israel. It didn't matter if you were right, left, center, secular, religious. All of Israel mourned. But there was a tremendous thing that happened that's kind of happening under the scenes, and all we need to do is shift our perception for just a moment and see what happened. The Belzer Rebbe came to the funeral. The Rosh Hashiva of the Mir and the Rosh Hashiva of Hebron, they're the 2 most respected contemporary Torah scholars in the Haredi world. They came to the funeral. The head of Agudat Israel in America came to the funeral. The Ger Rebbe, another Haredi rabbi, canceled his celebration, his Shabbaton, when he heard about the news. All of these Haredi rabbis, who call themselves anti-Zionists, were all now supporting Merkaz Harav, the flagship of Zionism. If you can imagine the Satmar Rebbe, the fiercest foe to Zionism in the religious Haredi world, 2 days after the tragedy, was said, when a tragedy of this magnitude occurs, murderers penetrating yeshiva, it is in Hashem's eyes comparable to the burning of the temple. They were learning at that moment the same Torah we learn. The Talmud is the same Talmud. What's happening right under our nose is a revolution. What's happening right here in the land of Israel is tremendous. All we have to do is change our perception. Torah true Jews are finally coming together. There's a new movement now in Israel, and it's realizing now that so many Jews, it doesn't matter if you have a kippah like this or a kippah like that or long payas, if you believe in God and you believe in the Torah and you love God and you love the Torah and you love the Jewish people, well, my goodness, we're now finally standing together and standing united. And when the Torah true Jews of Israel are finally united, the new Jewish voice will finally illuminate the entire world. Shalom from Jerusalem.
Children of the one, let's come together. We're living side by side, face to face. We will become the one and only one in this time and in this place. Together we will overcome and bring peace. Peace, not war. We are the children in this war for our freedom. Spiritual war in our generation. In this war, we are the children. Children dance, dance in the streets now. Our freedom is coming, our freedom is coming over horizons. Children dance, dance in the streets now. Our freedom is coming now, our freedom is coming up over Zion's horizons. War, we are the children. War in this war. Freedom, spiritual war in our generation. War in this war, we are the children. No! Children of the one, let's come together. We're living side by side, face to face. We will become the one and only one in this time and in this place. Together we will overcome and bring peace. Overcome and bring peace. Children dance, dance in the streets now. Our freedom is coming now, our freedom is coming up over horizons. Children dance, dance in the streets now. Our freedom is coming now, freedom is coming up. Zion's horizon. truth about the war. We are the children in this war for our freedom. Spiritual war in our generation. In this war, we are the children. Peace, not war. We are the children in this war for our freedom. For our freedom, spiritual war in our generation. In this war, we are the children. Peace, not war. We are just children in this war. Spiritual war in our generation. In this war, we are the children in this war for our freedom. Spiritual war in our generation. In this war, we are the children.